Identify and book the world's best speakers for your next event. MENA Speakers is the leading speakers and MC bureau in the Middle East. We bring global talent to the region and have established the region as a key global hub for speakers. Inspire and motivate your audience. Find exactly what you are looking for by working closely with us to assist you in understanding the cost-benefit analysis tied to selecting a speaker for any event. Ensure that your audience is educated, engaged, and empowered. Connect with us for a quick response and tailored advice. Book your speakers now.
Do you have an all-star HR team? You may feel your team is already performing at a high level, but let's take a closer look. Would your company's top leaders and employees agree that your HR team are operating at a high level? Are team members able to influence top executives on difficult topics? Are team members' business and strategy focused on the challenges the organization is facing? Does the executive team trust your direct reports as advisors on human capital issues? If you can answer yes to these questions, you have built an outstanding team. If you feel there is room for improvement, Strategy Focused Group can create a custom development program to elevate the quality of your HR team. We use HCI certification programs as well as non-certified HRBP MBA Masterclass to give your team a laser focus on the business and strategy. Please email us at info@strategyfocusedgroup.com.
Good morning, good evening, depending upon what part of the world you're in. If it's Friday, it is the CEO series where we bring together interesting people, CEOs, leaders, entrepreneurs, disruptors, innovators. Our guest today is Jane Egerton-Idehen, who is the head of sales for Meta for the Middle East and Africa. Her background is electrical and electronic engineering. She went to Warwick Business School in the UK, Harvard Business School, the Yale School of Management. And before working at Meta, she was the country manager in Nigeria and regional sales director for West Africa for Avanti Communication. We're going to be talking about her best-selling book, Be Fearless, Give Yourself Permission to Be You. So with that, I will welcome Jane. How are you?
Thank you, Ron. Thank you for having me on today's session. I'm great. It's late in the evening here, but I'm great.
That's good. That's good to hear. You're a globetrotter. You're in country to country, and to give some background to the audience, we were going through time zone kind of calculations to make sure we could get here to do this today.
Yeah, that's how complicated our lives can be, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It is. So you've had an amazing career from university to heading up sales for Meta, for the non-initiated Facebook Meta, for this large region. Walk us through that journey. How did you get to where you are today?
When you just said you had an amazing journey, it just hit me. I'm like, at the time I was going through it, I didn't feel like it was amazing.
Yeah.
I was going through, that's how I felt, like just get to your goal. So I did start, like you mentioned, I studied engineering. So I started as a tech, engineer. Actually, my first job was an earth station engineer. So I was working for a satellite integrator. We used to manage earth stations, the big satellite dishes that talk to the satellite in space. So that's what we did. And I know that at the early part of my journey, all I wanted to do was to rise and become maybe an executive as a tech executive in the engineering field. And that's what I thought about myself. Even when I started working for Ericsson, I got in as a tech person. I was a product manager. Before, like I said, I stumbled into sales. It wasn't deliberate. It wasn't part of my plan, vision, whatever you call it. It was never in the horizon. But people saw some skills. They're like, hey, you'll be good at this. You do so well at it. And after a little bit of tension, because there's always tension, it's not like you just said, yes, I'm going to do it. I thought about it. I worried about it. I was anxious. I weighed it. I talked to people, and I decided to take the sales route because
Mm.
ultimately I recognized that it was the end goal that mattered. Like the pathway was not
Okay.
necessarily, was not
Mm.
necessarily the intention. The end
Yeah.
goal where I was headed to was what mattered, and that's how I ended up going into sales. I did an MBA because I got into sales with innate skill sets or talent, but I realized to flourish in sales, I needed to even acquire some more skills, especially business knowledge. So it
Mm.
took me into studying for an MBA. That's how I went to Warwick. And I came back from Warwick, and I think it became a whole different journey because now you seem to have better tools into
Yeah.
growing on the job. So if I look back at that journey, I'll say some of the things that help is, like I mentioned, if you want to put it together, is one, I was very open and adaptable.
Mm.
Because, like I told you, I had a plan that I was going to be in the engineering field and probably evolve my career as an executive in engineering field. But it got to a point I had to make a decision that, there are options now. You could try the sales route. You don't
Mm.
know about it. People think you're good at it. They pointed
Yeah.
out skill sets you have that make it work. So it's just weighing those options and sometimes learning to adapt if required. I think that
Yeah.
was very helpful. Being ambitious. I know
Mm.
it sounds cliche, but it's really good to be ambitious
It,
because you
it.
can never know if you never push for it.
Yeah.
If you're very conservative with your goals or you try not to shoot for the stars, we fully truly do not really know ourselves. We're evolving every day. So I think when you set the bar high, you'll be amazed at what you can achieve. So
Yeah.
being ambitious really help. And thirdly, if I have to look at it, I think something that probably might sound very easy, like really be open to continuous learning. The moves, the shakes, the adjustments required, you're always learning, open
Yeah.
to taking in new information, looking for insight. So those are the three things I would say if I look at that journey that probably has
Yeah.
helped in that
Yeah.
journey.
I could take those three things and build a whole conversation around it. So I'm just going to touch on a few because you talked about the stumbling into sales.
Yeah.
And my initial startup out of college was in sales, and I started at IBM at sales. But I realize now that I look back on it, that was probably the best starting point because good in front of a crowd, good handling objections. I can always kind of flip it around. I can think fast on my feet. And it
Good.
was like a grounding force. If I look back on everything, that enabled me to transition. I eventually went into training and then into human resources and whatnot, but that sales piece was awesome.
I am actually aligned with you because there's some soft skills that are required for selling that really can be reused in several functions.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
that's one of the things I learned. I had some of them as an innate skill, and
Yeah.
some of them I had to work on, but they became because what I really needed to do was get some hard skills like business skills,
Yeah. Yeah.
finance, accounting. But with those innate growth skills or soft skills, then you found out you could flourish in probably any function
Mm.
because the growth skills are the same.
That's exactly right. Because you would always test the comfort zone. A lot of people probably, and I'm sorry, it's not a lot of people probably would have stayed in engineering because I'm comfortable doing this and I've been doing this for a while and I'm not going to reach. I would have just grown it through there. But you decided to test that and you came out of the comfort zone and you exposed yourself and you did what you did.
Yeah, yeah. It was a vulnerable moment, but I think if you take risks, you can never tell. Sometimes the higher the risk, the higher the reward. Sometimes I say sometimes, so people make sure that they take calculated risk. But
Yeah.
the higher the risk, the higher reward. And this is one that has given me higher rewards.
Hmm. So when you look back on that this career, so now when I was walking through it, you said that you, oh my God, it didn't seem that way when I was involved in going through that. But when you look back on that, what was a pivotal moment for you as you were climbing this mountaintop? You didn't know where the mountaintop was, but you were climbing that. What was a pivotal moment?
I could
If
look
there
at
was one.
two or three. One of them was really changing from engineering to sales. That was pivotal because that was tough. It was a tough call to make. It was against everything I stood for. So I had my own idea of who salespeople are. People that are pushy and forcing you to buy things you don't need. I had to change that narrative because that was my perspective of salespeople. Because that's not how I thought. I was like,
Yeah.
I just solve problems. Until someone literally explained to me, that's what we're asking you to do. Just solve customers' problems. Don't try to push something down their throat that they don't need. Just
Yeah.
go with the mindset of trying to solve
Mm,
their
mm,
problems.
mm,
So that was really a pivotal movement, a
mm.
moment in my career. Getting my first management job was another one because being an individual contributor had quite some skill sets, and I was trying to make a switch into management. I didn't know what it took.
Yeah.
I thought I knew what it took, but I found I didn't really have I didn't really know all it took. So my
Okay.
approach was different. I was looking at my performance at my job as being a key contributor, while
Hmm.
I realized that it took much more than your performance or your job. How you engage with stakeholders, having sponsors were key, especially for a
Oh,
black woman in tech. So
yeah.
those things came into play. So that was another pivotal moment. And I learned quite a lot from that process on what it really takes sometimes to bridge the gap. And that's why now I'm a huge promoter of having diversity in the room. Because when
Yes.
people are not represented, they don't really know what it takes. They want something, and
Yeah.
maybe they knew what it takes, they will do all is required, but they
Hmm.
don't know. They need to have people in those rooms that are speaking for them and can
Yeah.
also pass the information on what it takes. If not, they will be trying. It's like hitting yourself on the wall
Yeah.
until somebody shows you there is a door and this is how to open the door. You're
Hmm.
necessarily not going to be able to open the door. You just face the wall and keep hitting the wall.
Yeah. And see, that's something they don't teach in schools. So when you look at what it takes in life to succeed, you're talking about coming out of a comfort zone or making a left turn at the intersection to try something different, to go into something that maybe you don't feel comfortable in. And this is where, as what you were talking about, mentors come into play and all these kinds of things. How would you guide a person who's coming out of school and maybe they did the technical route that maybe they're not satisfied? And we're going to get to your book in a minute, which kind of, I'm sure, goes into a lot of this about give yourself permission to be you, the intake and making decisions based on that. Walk us through how you would, in that room, if you found someone in that room that was vulnerable and they was probably a big question mark that was coming through.
So indulge me a bit. I'll share a story that I'll tell you. I'll answer the question. So I put up a post last week, Friday, because I was just in the office. At the end of the day, I was about to pack up and go, and a lady walked up to me and said, she called me by my name, like as if she knew me, like, Jane, I really want to thank you. I'm here because of you. And I'm like, okay. Where did we meet? I was like curious, like, I can't remember. I couldn't place the face. She's like, oh, you don't know me, but I took this job because of you. Then she went on to paint what had happened. I had spoken at an event. I was a keynote speaker earlier in the year, and I shared, my experience in moving from tech, from engineering to sales, and how it happened, and all the things I had to do. And she said she was at the back of the room. She was actually working, but that story caught her attention because she was at that point. She was trying to make a decision, being a fresh graduate. What's the next move?
Mm,
And she said, after that, so she's like, that's not bad. Maybe I could try sales, like she's saying. And she said, because at the end, and also we were also recruiting for fresh graduates. So I shared some link. So she decided to take up the challenge, and there you go. She applied, went through the process, got the job, and she said she was loving it.
oh,
If I had to advise a younger Jane, that's how I normally say it, or a young person,
that third person, talking
a
to third
third
person.
person at that intersection, I would say number one is to really, really, if you can, articulate what you really want. So the how can be different. So if you're
Yeah.
going somewhere, sometimes there are many roads that lead to the place. It could be a sales route, an engineering, operations, project management. You could never tell. Then a good thing to do is also look at the skill sets. There's something there that are kind of innate to you, some things you're good at, and is worth exploring. That
Mhm.
could be an indication that that job could probably suit you in terms of the skill set is a good match.
Mm.
So that's one thing I would advise. It's the thing I did like when I was at that point was to speak to people like mentors or senior leaders or business leaders. That helped me frame it because remember, like I shared with you that I did have my own perspective on what sales was. Um,
Mhm.
and that was
Yeah,
on
you
the
push it,
wrong
push it, push
framing
it.
that held me back,
Yeah.
until someone, a mentor, when I shared with him, he laughed and tried to explain to me, no, that's not really sales. These are not people doing cold call selling and trying to force things down people. This is really what selling is all
Yeah.
about.
Yeah.
And with that right frame, I think it helped me see things in context. So I
Mm.
would say it's good to talk to people about that as well, senior
Yeah.
people, mentors, because they could, based on their experience, they could help you frame things that probably you got wrong as well. So
Yeah.
that could be my advice to a younger Jane if you're going through
Yeah. So that was a good commute home.
that.
Yeah.
It was a
And you
good
know,
Friday to me.
yeah, here you are telling the story as to the impact that made for in someone's life.
Oh yes,
They-
I was actually impressed because I didn't even know that. Sometimes you do those speaking engagements and you can't tell the impact because you can't quantify it. You know that maybe 200 people or 400 people attended, but for me is more than that. Like my big goal when I do some of the things is similar to what I said earlier, is to ensure that I can keep the door open so people like me can also
Yeah.
have access to those
Mhm.
rooms and they can also make their mark as well. And
Mm.
that's what I aim for.
So what's coming through, mentoring people, guiding people, serving as that resource. People look up to you as a leader, exemplifying, what real leadership is about. And you know what I mean by that. And so setting the stage for someone who's climbing the ladder, what you're saying is important to reach back and bring people along for the
Take
ride.
people along.
Yeah.
It's that's like my goal right now. Take people along. I normally say smash the door and keep it open so others
Yeah.
can have access. So
Yeah.
don't go in and close the door because
Yeah.
sometimes we have that, and that's why we still have misrepresentation.
Yeah.
Keep that door open, and that means if you have the knowledge and the insight, share with others so they have what so they can also benefit from your experience, and that's
Mm,
another way of
mm,
helping them.
mm. Yeah. I've shared that with a lot of leaders. They go in and they close the door. They're not going to let anybody else in, and it's kind of sends up that persona. But a lot of times, you talked about innate skills and having that ability, learning from things, watching things, and carrying that to the next level of reaching back. I think in a lot of cases, people that are in those leadership positions, they don't think in that mindset. And then mindset is more rigid. It's all about me, and kind of going forward. What advice would you give to those leaders who are totally clueless about maybe the impact they're having or reflecting, or how do you reflect? Just did I do? Did I have a good week? Was that a good interaction, a business meeting? How do you reflect and keep inspired from your side?
A key so a key image normally plays in my head when I think about such situation is like if I'm 90, probably at home, then you're not as active, probably
Yeah,
hopefully not in a wheelchair. But
yeah,
if I'm 90 and I have my grandkids around me and I need to recount my career, what
yeah.
would be the proud moments I want to talk about?
Wow.
Literally, I wouldn't remember that I closed the $350 million deal. I
Uh,
signed all this amount of checks. I think what I would remember is the people I helped along the way, or people that influenced me, or people I touched. Stories like this one of the lady I shared. I think those are the stories that will stick. And those are the
mm,
stories I'll be proud to tell.
mm,
So those
mm.
are the stories I want to create.
Yeah.
And that's what I would say to business leaders, because what really matters at the end, what is key It's not
Yeah.
the deals we signed or the wealth we acquired, because those things they will disappear. I think COVID has showed us as
Yeah.
easily as they came, they can. At 90, you really don't care if you're
Yeah.
living in a $10 billion house.
Yeah.
You probably want to
Or
wake up
room.
and your bones are not broken. At 90, you probably don't really care that you're driving a very luxurious car.
Yeah.
You don't care. You just want to be sure that you have good health. What you
Hmm.
really care is the people and the people you're leaving behind and how you've influenced them. Was it positive or not? So why
Hmm.
don't we create that now? And that's
Yeah.
my advice to leaders. Create that so when you tell the stories, you can really be proud of them.
Yeah.
Create that so that when you look back, you could truly be happy. Because I have been
Wow.
fortunate, moved jobs. And I
Mm.
realized for most of those jobs I left, I want to look back. I know that the people I left behind are thriving
Yeah.
just because I was there, because I was somehow in contact with them. I don't want to, I'm not more interested about, oh, I closed this deal, I
No.
created this product. They are good.
The
I don't know
soft
if,
side.
if in the end, if they're important.
Yeah. The soft side, of that in making that difference. So as you were walking through that story, I thought of Martin Luther King because one of the things he says, when I die, I don't want people to talk about I've won the Nobel Peace Prize and I won all these awards. Just summarize it to say, and I'm paraphrasing, I tried to help somebody. And I'm
Good.
thinking, wow, all this man achieved, Nobel Prize, that's not important. I tried to help somebody. I reached back and that's the exact reference point I went to as you talked through that. That was
And I think
powerful.
that's really at the end of the day, probably that's what will make you happy.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that because you were there, someone had a better day, or someone had it.
Mm, mm. So one of the things you mentioned, and that's always been kind of a key sticking point for me for leaders, and I'll say, how many people do you still hear from 2 jobs ago? And I would always ask that question as I was building a team. And when they would come back and say, we kind of left and kind of went our separate ways, I don't hear from, how many people did you manage? I managed a team of 10 people. Nobody? Nope. What's the next one? Nope. Pretty much that was the end of the deal because I knew you weren't a relationship builder. And I thought of that based on what you were saying, was that as you look back on the jobs you've had, did you make someone's life or career flourish? Were you a key part of that? If they were to, if the question was asked to them, who inspired you, whatever it would be, would that come back to you? And what you're saying is that you had that impact on probably from the sales jobs to where you are now. Even the young lady said, I heard you make a speech and I'm here because of you.
And I think it's so key for business leaders, because sometimes these are not the things that drive us. You want to quantify business metrics that are probably driven by profit and loss.
Yeah.
I believe in the business of people as well. So
Yeah.
I don't think business, I think it's more holistic if we realize that there are more stakeholders. And
Mm,
just beyond delivering the hardcore numbers, you want to make sure that the people, the environment in which you work with, people are inspired by your leadership.
yeah.
So it's it's sometimes people see it as the soft wishy-washy things, but at the end of the day, I think those are really the important things. So you don't lose sight of that,
Yeah.
as a business leader.
Mm. So if you let's talk a minute about your book because as I was doing research on you and reading up on you, and I saw that give yourself permission to be you. I'm thinking, and I always think of this when I see a book title. What caused you to think of that to pour it all out? And this is what I'm going to call it. Where did that title come from? Or what kind of spark to say, I got a lot in me that I got to talk about?
So the be fearless part is definitely because okay. I have a definition of being fearless, because people think that, oh, when I mean being fearless, it means you have no fear. It is
Yeah.
not the absence of fear. It's actually courage. It's the ability to act in the midst of the fear. So
Okay.
you're still scared. You're doing it scared,
Yeah.
because a lot of the things I have achieved or things I've done them scared, especially the big milestone ones. And I thought, for me, that is really courage. Is that I did them scared. I want people to know that that's what really happened. I wasn't like honky dory, all confident and like, yes, I'm going to do this and it's going to be successful. Let's
The
go.
real big shot, right?
I was sweating. I was anxious, sleepless nights, trying to figure out the pros and the cons, the different, you do them scared, but you did them. That's what's important.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's the B, fearless part. And the B, give yourself permission to you, is become a common ethos of Maya Recent. And it's tying back to being authentic, strength-based leadership.
Hmm.
Everybody has something unique about them. Try not to be somebody else. I think try to be you. When you are you, you
Hmm.
can leverage your strengths and be unique in a way that nobody else can replicate it. So if you're thinking of being, differentiating yourself, I think you should be more comfortable with yourself and accessing your strengths
Yeah.
and do those things from the position of strengths. Because I found out that when I do that, that is when I flourish.
Mm.
But when it comes easy, because some of those innate talents or skills make it easier for you
Yeah.
compared to the average person because you're good
Yeah.
at it. So think about it. If you then invest in upskilling yourself, you know,
Mm.
you become excellent at it. Now you're comfortable doing it. That's a good way to differentiate yourself and show up being authentic. So I want people to just know that they have the permission to be themselves. Stop trying to run around being someone else. Like
Mm.
everybody's taken. Try not to replicate them.
Yeah.
Learn from them. More importantly, be you. Own your story.
Yeah. You know, so many things you say, and I'm thinking, oh wow, I remember this happened to me because, as I said, I started in sales, and one of the old sales guys was out with me one day, and I was trying to sell with a method and going through the objections and all this stuff. And when he got outside, he said, "Let me tell you something, kid." The kind of guy with a toothpick out the side of his mouth as he's talking. He said, "Let me tell you something, kid." He said, "Be you." He said, "Stop trying to go through all this stuff."
And they
They
will love you when you're you.
He said, "Stop trying to be the person they train you in all these classes you went to." He said,
Yeah.
"Just be yourself. Let the real Ron come through." And the more I thought about that, and then as I gingerly tried to do it, it's a lot more comfortable just being, this is who I am, as opposed to trying to put on that facade to say, I'm
I want to
gonna
be.
act the way that we're supposed to act in these kind of situations.
And
So
I'll
that
throw in a story there on because I love to tell stories. So, one of the largest deals I ever signed was coming out of an attribute I had that everybody thought was a disadvantage. So, as a salesperson, I was married with kids. As usual, it's like very dicey because the
yeah.
guys want to go to the bar after a meeting, and I'm like, oh no, I have to go home. I'm gonna go pick my kids' homework, dinner. So it was always still like, oh, she doesn't play along. Why does she want to hang out with her?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
can't hang out at the bar at 2 a.m. I'm going to tuck some kids to bed. So, and for a while, I would worry about that. Kind of like, oh my God, I'm not doing good at this job because, like that they've all gone to the bar. I can't go to the bar, and they're meeting. Like these things get you a little bit anxious. But when I started to own who I was, I decided it was a strength, and I'm going to use it. So I would have clients that just like me had family. And one of those clients, that was the easiest way. I would see, and like after the meeting, she'd go call her kids, and I'm like, you know what? I've got kids as well, and they're by the same age. Why don't we just have a play date? "Ah, that's a good idea," she said. So our
Hmm.
kids started having play dates, and while they have play dates, we just chit chat about business. And after you know it, I was like, oh, I see. I noticed she loves cooking, or something like that. I'm like, you know what? I see you love cooking. Have you cooked this recipe? Maybe I could try it next time. You're like, oh, you could come. You could come. I invite you over one of those days and I could show you how I do it. So I'm looking for common elements. And these are normally
Yeah.
traits that will, in a traditional sales sense, it
Hmm.
doesn't apply because I was in a tech world that was male dominated. And that's not how we do sales. We
Yeah.
go to the bar. And I'm trying to do this in the kitchen and at the playground. But at the end, I closed one of the largest deals because nobody else could mirror that.
Yeah.
A lot of the other guys that were competing with me struggled because they couldn't show up at her kitchen, neither
Yeah.
are they willing to do play dates with kids. but
Yeah.
I was doing that consistently. So
Mm.
I learned to own who you are. And I could give examples like that. And I'm telling people, operate from a place of strength. That is the leverage that sometimes others will find it difficult to mirror.
Yeah. That's so powerful because that's based on relationships. You build a relationship. So one of the things this guy was saying, he said, you build a relationship with people. He said, these new things come out. I just go and talk to the people and, we sit and chat and we may spend 20 minutes just talking about what we did for the weekend, families and all that. And the last 10 minutes, I said, yeah, send me 10 cases of that. And he said, I walk out. He said, you're going through all this foolishness here with this and that and the other. You're going about it the wrong way, kid. And the toothpick is still hanging at the side of his mouth, Amazing. But I still reflect back on that. And I'll always say, I'll always be Ron. It's always about fun. I'll never go through you this, you that. And when you do that, you begin in the process of losing who you are. And this is why when I looked at the title of your book, it resonated so much because being you.
1 second, Ron, 1 second.
Everything okay?
We're okay. The disruptions, I'm sorry about that. My
No,
daughter was
that's okay. That's
in.
okay. That syncs in with the story you were just telling. So that was cool.
Yes, that's all part of the Jane.
All part of it. So let's take a commercial break because we got a video that we want to show everybody
Yeah,
about
that'd be
you.
great.
So let's take a commercial break now, and we'll pull that up.
I spent the first 27 years of my life growing up in one of the lowest slums of Lagos, Nigeria, Ajegunle. As a young girl, I used to see myself wearing a white pantsuit, standing in front of this tall, magnificent building, being an executive holding a briefcase. Being at the top of my field, I wanted to share my experiences, my highs and my lows, my successes and my failures with my daughter, Sarah. I mentor a lot of young people, especially women. At some point in my organization, I had career sessions with over 300 people dialed in from various continents of the world. I am a tech executive and I've been in the tech space for about 2 decades. Now I'm very passionate about helping women grow their careers and young girls starting one. Are you thinking of growing your career? Are you thinking of starting one? Do you think you need a coach? Or do you think at this point in your career a sponsor is adequate? Then you should join the campaign. Give yourself permission to be you and be fearless. Get my book. I share my experiences. I talk about the tools and the resources that have helped me along the way. My name is Jane Egerton-Idehen. I'm a telecom executive, an author, a speaker, a leader. I'm passionate about seeing you grow your career. And I've got you covered.
Oh God, I love that video. When I saw that video, I said, that's why I asked you. I said, can we use that? Because that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. You covered a lot there. You covered a whole lot there, from the women's side of managing careers and all of that. So this was around the time of that book launch?
Yes, this was around that was March 2020. And an interesting thing, that was just at the beginning of COVID, and I had to. It's a whole different story how we had to, because I had a whole book launch planned, and we had to pivot at the last minute because then there was COVID and lockdown. But yeah, that was March 2020.
Wow, that's a cool video, and because when I was inviting you on, that was on it was on the bottom of one of the email communications we had. And I said, okay, let me click to see what that is. And when I saw it, I sent it to her. I said, we let me ask her whether we can use this because this was cool.
Thank you for doing that.
Yes, so that was cool. So all of the audience will see this and hopefully go out and buy it. But I've already ordered it, through Amazon myself. But I always like to use Audible because I do this walking and for exercise.
The audio is not yet out. Very soon, hopefully, but the audio is not yet out.
Okay. Are you going to be the narrator of it? Is that the plan, or are you going to have somebody
That's
do it?
not the plan, actually. I want to have someone do it. I think the idea is that I wanted to have someone do it, but someone that can do it as close as possible to my voice.
I see. I see.
I
Okay.
can
Yeah.
relate.
A British accent may not make it. You know what I
Oh,
mean?
some of those words there, I don't think it's going to land well.
Yeah. So let's talk about you as an executive. What is the most important trait you look for when you hire people? When you hire people at a -1, -2 from you, what do you look for?
Growth skills, soft skills, because the truth is that the hard skills we can train you for.
Yeah.
The hard skills we can teach you those skills. The growth skills we are looking for, because most times they come through experiences and your ability to navigate them. So critical thinking, negotiation,
Hmm.
communications, emotional intelligence or social intelligence. Those are some of the skills. No, they probably don't even teach you in school. That's the funny thing.
Yeah.
But through your life experiences, as you navigate them, you are adapting and creating the skill sets to go through that. So
Mm,
those things are really important, because, like it says, those are the things that determine how you grow,
yeah.
your mindset, and they are
Hmm.
the key things. So most times we're interviewing you. That's the kind of the scenarios we are asking you questions around. That's what we are looking for
Okay.
in
Okay.
telling us how you responded to the situation, the behaviors you exhibited.
Yeah.
Can we
Yeah.
see a bit of critical learning? Was that
Yeah.
innovation? Was it so? The growth skills for me are the skill set.
Yeah. Well, that sinks into everything you've been talking about is building those relationships with people and helping people and all of that. And so I'm assuming from that is this is you want to surround yourself with this kind of mindset. The technical skills will take care of themselves.
Especially if we're recruiting, so there's a difference as well. Let me put that in context. So if I'm recruiting a fresh grad, if I'm recruiting a new fresh hire, especially when I'm not seeking industry experience. Growth skills are important because we can teach you the hard skills. We will
Hmm.
teach you. We will train you for that. And we know an average person that has gone to a college with a college degree can learn those skill sets. So that's not the hard part. It's the
Hmm.
growth skills that we're looking for. Because if we can identify the growth skills, we can determine which functions best suit that
Hmm.
growth skills.
Hmm.
So when we then look for industry hires or experience hires, we're looking for now the hardcore skills and the growth skills. Because if you're an industry hire, experience hire, we are riding on the fact that you already have a bit of the hardcore.
Yeah.
So you
Yeah.
can hit the ground running, like I say, the
Yeah.
fresh grad, we would have to train them on the hardcore skills, give them time, but the experience hire, especially when we want someone that can just join the team, hit the ground running. But the growth
Hmm.
skills are still important because that would also give us the ability to see you flourish and grow. Because we want you to also grow in your career. We're not
Yeah.
looking for you to just be stagnant. It doesn't align well with maybe some of
Hmm.
our values as
Okay.
well. So
Okay. So you bring them in, a couple of years, they've been doing good work. What do you look for when you promote someone? Because you said you don't want to be stagnant in that role. If there's an opportunity to promote someone, what is the differentiating factor of?
baseline, if you ask me, baseline is that the first delivering excellently at the role where they are. So
Hmm.
the baseline performance you're delivering, whatever your deliverables are or your KPIs, you're matching that level, like you're delivering. And the truth is that for most organizations, actually promotions lag. We would have seen you exhibit traits of the next level. That's
Okay.
the truth. Then it becomes glaringly clear that this
Yeah.
person shouldn't
Yeah.
be here. They should
Yeah.
be there.
Yeah.
So that's why I tell people to, if you want something, you have to mirror what you want.
Yeah.
See you do it. You don't have to be 100% of it.
Hmm.
That's
Hmm.
an indication. So, but other things I would do, especially as a leader, is to find out that there's alignment. Is that where you want your career to head?
Yeah.
Because we've had cases where people have been misplaced. They're sitting in trajectories that they don't like. Maybe they don't want to go by this pattern. Because we see them performing, we are promoting them on that path. So I always
Mm-hmm.
like to have a conversation with people. I want to know what their short term, medium term, and long term goals look like,
Mm-hmm.
because it
Mm-hmm.
allows me determine if this path is where you're deliberately seeking growth, or we should help you find another path. And that's what I love with what I do. I don't believe that we have to keep you in a box.
Yeah.
I'm one of those leaders that would help you get another path if that's
Okay.
what's best suited for
Mm,
you. So
yeah.
those are so when
Key
I'm
point.
things I'm looking for, where have you articulated you're going to? What are your strengths? Because it also helps us in how you would deliver the next phase. The fact
Mm,
that you're delivering is baseline. You have to even deliver where you are and have shown attributes of the next stage as well.
yeah. That's so important. You know what? I wish I could clone that little master class you just gave and take that to my leadership piece. Maybe I'll splice this out because lots of times, I do a lot of leadership development, and I find that people feel comfortable hiring people like themselves. They want to mirror that image, and that really screws up the DEI component specifically as it relates to that. And so, skills you're looking for the next step, as opposed to trying to hire another Jane.
No, I don't want another Jane. There's already one Jane in the team. And the truth is that to solve complex problem, we need diversity,
Yeah,
diversity of thought, function. So if I don't get the diversity, I won't solve complex problem, because I'll just have everyone that thinks like me and agrees to everything I
yeah,
say. Then how
yeah,
am I going to solve the complex problems? But
yeah,
if I have other people that have different perspective, context, who share the diversity of experience or thought, I'm having, different frame to look at it. So
yeah,
we become that team that can solve very complex problems, and the world loves people that solves problems. That's basically business, you
yeah,
know.
yeah. Somebody was telling me I did a speech at the London Business School uh, pre-COVID, right before COVID, and it was fresh MBAs and whatnot, and I was telling them the same thing. I said companies are looking for solution providers. They're looking for people to solve things. You think you're a big shot because you got a London Business School MBA, but if you can't do anything with that and bring some kind of solutions to an organization, it's just a plaque on the wall.
Yeah.
And everybody kind of laughed. One gentleman came up to me after. He said, "I'm kind of glad you said that." He said because a lot of the people here tend to think that because they got the London Business School MBA and the doors that they're
All
supposed to
their
open,
problems are solved.
so you're in for a rude awakening.
Oh, there you are, because you actually have to show the value you bring, and
Yeah,
the way things are going globally, we're going to see more of that. Like the boom is gone.
yeah,
We're going
it
through
is God.
this period where it's going to be tough for businesses. So we're going to ask the very hard questions, even when it comes to talent management. So it's the
Yeah,
value that you bring that will be really important, not
yeah.
the accolades or the certificates you have acquired.
So as we begin to close out, I want to ask you a question around leadership lessons you've learned over your career. So you've walked us through all of that. What was a major leadership lesson you learned that could have been from a family member or someone that kind of put you on track or as a reference point you always go back to? Who would that person be?
Who would the strength-based leadership is one. I know I'd mentioned it, but that I actually learned from reading a book.
Okay.
So it's Malcolm, is it Malcolm?
Gladwell.
Not Malcolm Gladwell.
Yeah.
Marcus Burkingham, I think that's his name.
Oh, Marcus Buckingham.
Now
Yeah.
discover
I,
your strengths, because I had
yeah.
both of
Yeah.
his books.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Marcus is that's
that
Marcus.
was a new frame, because for a long time that was not the way I approach things. I would
Yeah.
set goals for my weaknesses. How
Yeah.
am I going to try and improve the weaknesses? The train is it. So I was literally focused on improving my weaknesses.
Yeah.
But when I read his book, I had a whole different perspective on how to approach the career. So I then focused a lot on my strength. It doesn't mean I don't, but I'll give more focus to the strengths, because those were the things that were making me
Hmm.
accelerate. So that was one. And second thing I would say, if I look back, if I look at leadership, growth mindset actually. Growth mindset, because I think a lot of things I've gone through, a lot of it to do with your attitude, your frame of reference, or your perspective.
Yeah.
And you'll face that in your career. I think I share that in my book. For example, I said in my book that there are no enemies because people think, oh, someone hates you at work. I believe they're just shared interest. If the interests are not aligned, then it looks like we're on different side of the table.
Yeah.
Go with that frame of mind. You don't burn bridges, and you see that there are no enemies.
Mm-hmm.
I learned that as I began to climb the ladder,
Yeah.
because sometimes you want to put things in a bucket, and as a leader, I realized it's not always black and white.
Mm-hmm.
You can't just literally put labels on people.
Mm-hmm.
If you're going to be a savvy business person or leader, you have to learn that it's important you have the growth mindset, the ability to look at things and find opportunities for growth or learn, because you would fail,
Mm-hmm.
you would have pushback, you would have challenges. I can almost guarantee you that.
Yeah.
Nobody had a smooth ride.
Mm-hmm.
What will be different is how you approach that. Not just you giving up, but how would you approach that?
Mm-hmm.
Did you see that as something that is a teachable moment, something you could learn, something you could take on and figure out,
Yeah.
what's the different perspective here? Or do you think that you can never learn from these things? It's the end of the world, so this is
Mm-hmm.
not going to work.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one mindset I have time and time again has
Yeah.
really helped me in just navigating my
Mm-hmm.
career journey.
Mm-hmm. I find that one of the things I like about the conversation, you have so many reflecting points, and the stories you tell are anchored in something else, and you're still going back to those because the clients I deal with lots of times, they don't reflect. And if I could draw an arc over the work I do, as I said, you have to reflect. You have to think about another time. You have to go back and think it through. Why didn't it work? It's not always somebody else's. It could be you. You have to do that. And sometimes it's like talking to a brick wall because that fixed mindset is there. But if you could switch over, maybe your life wouldn't be so complicated because a
I
lot
think
of times it is.
reflecting could be tough. Reflecting requires that you be vulnerable. You look yourself in the mirror
Yeah.
and tell yourself, I could have done this better. These
Yeah.
are 3 or 4 ways I could have approached it now. And just being sincere to yourself that, there's still opportunities there. I
Yeah.
should have just reconsidered this. But for most people, they just like motion. I tend to do that sometimes. You just want to keep moving irrespective. You don't want to go back and learn any new lessons.
Yeah.
I just keep pretending that it didn't happen. Let's just keep going. But it's such a powerful thing. And I believe that great leaders have that ability to almost self-regulate or reflect or self-management, however you want to put it. Because I tell people that the more you climb, there are fewer people that can sincerely give you feedback,
Yeah.
either because of your position of authority or maybe other they struggle to give you feedback. As
Hmm.
a leader, it is a powerful tool if you can self-reflect, if you could
Hmm.
look yourself in the mirror and assess your journey and
Yeah.
learn from it. Because there'll be few people that do that for you. When you're
Yeah.
younger, there's so many people trying to give you feedback. As you
Yeah.
get, as you climb, there are very few people trying to do that.
Yeah. And you say, look in that mirror, you're looking at mirror and say, you know what? I was absolutely awful. And I know I was awful, but here's what I'm going to do different next time. And that's kind of a moment you have from time to time. So, sometimes I do that when I go for my walks, and that didn't end well. I got to come back and figure out how to build a better relationship with this person. I can't just ignore it or whatever it is. I got to step up to the plate and say, you know what? I was stupid and I made a huge mistake. Let's try and do this over again. And I find that for the most part, it works.
It will, and it's such a powerful tool because not every time you're going to have a coach or a mentor that's going to sit to you and tell you to your face that you could have done this better or this
Hmm.
the way the scenario you handled it
Yeah.
wasn't the best. You might never have that. You have to find time in your day, week, or however you're going to build it that you can actually reassess your actions
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
learn from them. It's I don't want to say it's tough to do. Sometimes it could look like it's inconveniencing, but
Yeah.
it is such a powerful tool because I sense that once you do that, you probably will make less bigger mistakes.
Yeah.
You would have stopped that traction before it became catastrophic. You know,
Hmm.
you would have intervened, taken a different route before the cost became too high.
Yeah. I read an article that said that leadership development training should start at an earlier point in a person's career, because we wait till people develop habits, and once they get to a certain level, say, well, you could be in a succession pool or whatever, and we start developing you. But meanwhile, you've had 10 years of bad work, people related, and this role could be dependent upon that. And I've always kind of thought that. So my thought is this: at every level of increasing responsibility, the first time you're managing people, you need to be exposed to how it should possibly be done and how you have to read situations and all of that. But so what you're saying as you talk through this is that a lot of the onus is on the leader in managing the team. I've got 10 different personalities. I've got to figure out, I always use it, this symphonic C-suite, is that's my leadership development program, is that it's like you're the person with the baton, and you're this trumpet, this trombone, this drums, and all of that, putting all that together. That's my interpretation of it.
I think it's John Maxwell that says that everything falls on leadership. It all falls and rises on leadership.
Yeah, yeah.
So at the end of the day, yeah, it is. And I like your concept of we're all leaders as well,
Yeah,
in a
yeah,
very, maybe simplistic term. Some of us are positional leaders because now we've gotten to a point where someone has put a label to our name.
yeah,
But I believe in different aspects of our lives, people are leading. So giving them or supporting them with the skill set where earlier is better because they will
yeah,
be better by the time we make them positional leaders.
yeah.
It could
So
be leading a community group or volunteer group or even supporting at home. But those skill sets you could fine tune them even before you get positional leadership.
yeah, I laugh because I remember someone, I may have read this, that said that the dangerous part of labeling someone's a leader when they get these initials after their name. Oh, EVP, SVP, CEO. He said those initials are dangerous if the mindset is skewed, because they're going to lay on that label. And I had a buddy of mine, and we had both made vice presidents of this particular company. And one of his reports came to me and says, he's hard to deal with. And I was talking to him, this particular leader. He and I were just sitting down having a cup of coffee. And he said, yeah, he's always coming in. He said, but you know what? I'm the only one that got two initials after my name. I said, what do you mean two initials? He said, I'm a VP. I'm like, oh, God, no, don't say that. But he thought that was being cool because he had the initials. So all of his power came from having those initials there. I said, oh, God, this is going to be a long road to fix this person here. So,
But I think leaders are powerful when they can deliver influence even without the
yeah,
labels. That for
without,
me is
we're
really
all, so what you're saying is that we're all leaders. So that's
we're
kind of
leaders.
a good way to close it out. So Jane, thank you so much for setting the time aside. And I know you're in Dublin as we're having this conversation, but thank you so much, and your staff, for setting this up. Um, thank you for being here. Thank you.
Thank you, Ron. It was a pleasure. I've enjoyed every moment of it. I know it's late, but it's
Yeah,
been a very interesting and insightful discussion with you. So thank you
it
to
was
you and the team.
it was so cool. So just hang on as we begin to close out.
Okay.